Howdy folks, and welcome back to War Thunder with the mighty Jingles. Today I wanted to take a closer look at this little beauty here, the P-36 Hawk by Curtiss Aviation Company, the immediate follow-on to the P-26 Peashooter and the predecessor, the P-40 Warhawk, or Kitty Hawk, depending on who's asking. And it does share a lot of similarities, as you can see just by looking at it, with the Kitty Hawk. The one I'm flying here is the Rank 4 P-36G, which you can see in US Army Air Corps livery. What's interesting is the P-36G was actually a Norwegian plane. The US Army Air Corps only used about 215 P-36s in all variants. It did rather better as an export fighter, however, and was built and manufactured under license in various countries around the world, where over 900 were made. Norway, for example, had 18 of these things built and ready for service at the time of the German invasion, and a further 30 were delivered to a place in Toronto, Canada, which was known as Little Norway, where the Norwegian government in exile from London were training Norwegian fighter pilots using this variant of the P-36. It was later resold back to the USA, where it acquired the P-36G designation. It first flew on the 6th of May 1935. And at the time, it had some fairly advanced features. Fully powered, fully retractable undercarriage, for example. And wait for it, a fully enclosed cockpit. Wow! Unfortunately, the P-36 Hawk, along with other aircraft built at the same time, like the Hawker Hurricane, suffered due to the rapid pace of aircraft design in the mid-30s. Most aircraft that were cutting edge in 1935 were obsolete by 1939 when the Second World War broke out. The Hawk's initial armament was fairly weedy. It only had one 50 caliber M2 machine gun and one 30 caliber M1919 machine gun, although later models were significantly upgunned with the addition of two M2 50 caliber machine guns firing synchronized through the propellers, and anything from 2 to 4 additional 30 caliber machine guns mounted in the wings. Performance-wise, it was a bit of a mixed bag. The original P-36A production model had a single Pratt & Whitney Twin Wasp air-cooled radial piston engine, which gave it 1,050 horsepower. Now, the advantage of the radial piston engines was that they did give good performance, and they could withstand much more punishment than their sexier liquid-cooled brothers. It gave it a top speed of 313 miles per hour, with a range of 625 miles and a service ceiling of around 32,700 feet, with a rate of climb 3,400 feet per minute. Unfortunately, it was still outclassed by the Bf-109 in every respect other than manoeuvrability. The Royal Air Force found that the Hawk had a couple of advantages over the Mark I Spitfire. It had lighter controls than the Spitfire at high speed, especially in diving attacks, and was easier to manoeuvre in a dogfight, despite the fact that the pilot was completely unable to see what was behind him due to the raised spine of the fuselage behind the cockpit. It did have better all-round visibility. However, Spitfire had better acceleration, better top speed, which meant that the Spitfire could choose when to engage and leave combat, which was a massive advantage. Also, by the time the Spitfire was introduced into service, the Hawk was as good as it was ever going to get. As many modifications as it was possible had been made to this aircraft, and the Spitfire, of course, was just at the beginning of its design evolution. Incidentally, the Royal Air Force's Hawks were renamed Mohawks because, that's what the British do. Whenever we use American equipment, we stick a new name on it and hope nobody notices it's not actually British. Although the Royal Air Force Hawks weren't American, they were Chinese. Now, Britain did already operate some Hawks. As part of the Commonwealth, the Royal Indian Air Force used some. But the Chinese Hawks were built and manufactured under license from Curtiss in China, and when Japan invaded China, the factories were relocated to India. And in true imperialist, colonialist fashion, the British government said, yes, we'll have those, thanks very much. Nationalised the factories and pressed them into service with the Royal Air Force as the Mohawk Mark IV. Number 5 Squadron and Number 155 Squadron Royal Air Force used them for bomber escort and ground attack in the Far East. But while the Hawk may have just been able to cut it at the outbreak of the Second World War, by the middle of the Second World War it was seriously showing its age. And the Royal Air Force retired all of its Mohawks from service even before the war had ended in 1944. So the Hawk didn't do too well in American service, where the US Army Air Corps had more capable aircraft to use. But over 900 were built, manufactured and or sold to foreign nations, including Finland, who used them against the Russians in the Winter War. But they didn't get them from America. Finland actually got its Hawks from, wait for it, Germany. What the hell, Jingles? Well, Germany captured all of those French Hawks that the French Air Force were using. They were the Hawk 75s. Now, the Germans have never been too proud to turn up the chance of using somebody else's weapons against them. In fact, if you've ever watched Band of Brothers, on D-Day, the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment's Easy Company assaulted an artillery battery at Breakhorn Manor. Those artillery pieces were actually captured French 105mm guns. Now, the Germans were always using captured equipment, captured tanks, captured guns, captured aircraft, you name it. But they took one look at the Hawk, and then they took a look at the Bf-109, and they said, nope, sorry, does anybody want to buy these? And the Finns said, God, we'll have them. Oh, yeah, we'll have anything. We don't care. We've got our backs up against the wall with the Russians here. And so Germany sold Finland a number of these captured French P-36s, as well as a bunch that were captured still in their crates in the warehouses when they captured Norway. The Finns loved these things, and they used them to great effect against the Soviets, which was, kind of interesting, because Germany and Russia were technically, secretly allies at the time, and Germany had no problem arming Russia's enemies, because, hey, that's politics for you. The Finns loved the Hawk. Their nickname for it was the Sweetheart. Isn't that nice? And 58 Finnish pilots between 1941 and 1944 scored over 190 kills against the Red Army Air Force flying the Hawk. Of course, they were shooting down some seriously garbage aircraft in 1941. And as the Red Army's aircraft got better and better as the war went on, well, the Finns just kept throwing heavier and heavier armament on the Hawk, and the Hawk could handle it. Extra weight in the form of additional and heavier weapons didn't really seem to affect the performance characteristics of this aircraft. The Finns loved it so much that, and also because, they couldn't really afford to be choosy, they kept this thing in service until 1948. This thing was quite literally flown by everyone. Over 60 pilots from dozens of different nations all became aces flying the P-36. It's also worth mentioning that the very first Allied air victories on the Western Front in World War II were scored on the 8th of September 1939, when 5 French Hawk fighters tangled with a patrol of Messerschmitt Bf-109Es and shot down 2 without any losses, despite the Bf-109 being 30 miles per hour faster and having better climb and dive speed, which basically allowed it to engage or break off combat at will. The Hawk was more manoeuvrable and could take a hell of a lot more of a beating. Only one Hawk exists in flying condition today, and you can find it at the Imperial War Museum in Duxford, here in Britain. It belongs to the fighter collection. It's a Hawk 75A1, number 82, and it was part of the very first 100 aircraft which were sent to France. And it's a testament to the durability of this little monster that, well, I'm flying on one wing with no engine, and this thing just will not go down. And it's still trying to kill and scoring damage on enemy aircraft. Come on, come on. Another hit, another hit. No, not going to get another hit. Oh well, never mind. And there goes the Hawk. So, the P-36 Hawk, available in 3 different variants in War Thunder, the P-36A, C and G. Good little aircraft. Held its own at the start of the Second World War. Obsolete by the end of the Second World War. And yet saw service and scored kills in every theatre of operations. Africa, India, the Far East, the Mediterranean, the Western Front, the Eastern Front, Finland, the Winter War. Everybody used it. And thanks to the wonders of modern technology and War Thunder, now you can too. As always folks, watch your 6, and I'll catch you next time.